to good evening, folks. Really excited to have you here this evening. This promises to be an important conversation for me. I guess that doesn't make it a conversation, but it promises to be an important conversation because on so many levels, we think we know what people are going through. We think because we see them, we understand what it is that they've had to do to make it through the day. And I'm no different. It's easy for me to look into the eyes of someone else and think that I understand what they're going through. But you don't know what somebody's going through until you take the time to ask. And No Dumb Questions, it's a platform that we began with the expectation that I would interview people who I think are important to the community, to the causes that matter to me. The causes that matter to me are getting kids access to an education, creating freedom through self-determination, and ultimately having honest conversations about our circumstances as a community. And I can say that never would I have expected tonight's conversation to be the one that we're having. Because I'm 52, I work out 5 days a week. On a bad week, 6 days when I'm really feeling it. I don't eat terribly bad, even if you include that Dunkin' Donuts sandwich that I just had. I have no reason to have any health issues. I have the blood pressure of a 17-year-old girl. Heart does what it's supposed to do. I'm good for all intents and purposes. And I had a conversation this weekend with a friend and a source of inspiration, Miss Sarah Carpenter. And for those of you who don't know Miss Sarah's down in the Memphis or greater Memphis community. And she is a fighter. I mean, you put it in front of her, she's gonna knock it down. And we happen to share our interest in making sure that there's some form of self-determination through education in our community. She's been fighting down there and I've been fighting up here. And we've sometimes put our superpowers together to fight people we think stand in the way. And it's so easy to get caught up in the esoteric notions of education reform and traditional schools versus charter schools and the noise of it all. It's so easy to just get caught up in the noise of it and not understand the people behind it. And so for those of you who know Miss Sarah, you know that on Tuesday, she had brain surgery for the second time in 10 years. It's her story to tell. And if she had it her way, she'd be telling us this story right now. But when she and I spoke, we agreed that we wanted her in a better position to be able to have the conversation that we feel she needs to share with the community. But she said to me about 25 minutes ago, and if you know Miss Sarah, you know that she says she doesn't ask. Miss Sarah said to me, Dr. Perry, I told you got to tell your testimony. You got to share your testimony. You got to tell your story. And so what time are you doing it? Which, if you know Miss Sarah, it's not really a question. It was a declaration. So I said, Miss Sarah, I'm only doing this for you. Only because you say so. She said that if you don't tell your story, you don't share your testimony, then you're not doing the full work of God. Again, those of you who know Miss Sarah, you also know that she lost her beloved grandson to murder. You don't know what somebody's going through ever until they tell you. And you don't know what they had to overcome ever until they tell you. And I don't tend to believe that most people even care. That's why they don't ask. They just assume. But tonight I have to believe that there are some people out there who are going through something and don't understand how it is that they're going to make it to the other side. And it is easy for them to look at the rest of us and think that we've got it all figured out, that in fact, we understand it all and we have the answers, and it is they who don't understand what's going on and they just are having life happen to them. So I'm compelled to tell you that on Monday at 12:30, I was in the middle of a meeting, a Zoom. I had asked for the Zoom because I was meeting with someone important to our organization. His name is James Stovall. And Brother Stovall is just a really solid human being. That's important to understand because the rest of the story makes sense when you understand that about him. But Brother Stovall and I were talking about work, straight up work. Wasn't really anything more than that, nothing fancy. And work for us, or me, is to provide children with access to a quality education. It's what it is. And it's because of that he and I were on a call, and I was trying to say that I anticipated a lawsuit. That was all I was trying to say. And when I started to say it, it didn't sound like it sounded in my head. I said, I'm, and I heard myself saying it, stuttering and stammering, but I didn't know why. So I, excuse me. So I continued to talk. I talk for a living. This is what I do. The bigger the stage, the bigger the speech, the more confident I am. You put me in front of 10,000 people, I light it up. But he and I was just having a meeting. The meeting was supposed to be over by 1, and then I had another meeting at 1:30, and we were just going to move on through it. And so my head was starting to hurt, but I've had a headache before. It wasn't really a thing. So why trip? The more I tried to talk, the less capable I was to talk, and my hand felt weird, and I didn't know why at the time. And I was trying to talk, and my head was hurting, and I couldn't say what I wanted to say. And so he asked me, he said, "Steve, you good?" And instead of answering him yes, which is what I would have said, I was actually trying to prove to him that I was good. So I kept talking. I kept trying to say what it was that I was trying to say. To no avail. My head was hurting more and more. Honestly, it just felt like someone had their elbow above my eye and was just driving it in. And they just was just driving it. And I just couldn't get it to stop hurting. And so I got up. I stood up from my desk, because I was at home, but I was in my home office. My home office is detached from my house. It's behind my house. It's in the bay of in my garage, in the bay of one of the entries to my garage. And when I go over there, I could be there. A low day is 8 hours. A high day is 17. I go there to write. I go there to work. I'm there, and nobody bothers me. In fact, I designed it that way. I'd seen this story on Thomas Edison, and Thomas Edison had a workshop, and in his workshop, he had a couch that he actually slept on, and his wife would occasionally come out and drop food out there, and he would sleep out there, and he did everything out there. And so I designed my office to be like Edison's office, because if Edison could do those things in his office, I wanted to imagine what I could do in mine. My work is to help children, so I want to take as much concentrated time as possible to be in my office, to be focused. And so Monday I was home, that to have this conversation. So I stood up, and when I stood up, you can't see it. It's like one of these TV lights, like it's the one right here. I stood up and I couldn't get by it, so I knocked it down. And it didn't knock it down because I lost my balance, I thought, just because it was just in the way. And so when I did that, I fell up against the wall. And when I fell, I recognized that I was losing consciousness. So when I did that, I made my way over to the couch. I'm sorry, Mashana, can you get that person who's doing something stupid, like talking about investing in Bitcoin? Like, can you take them off? Thank you. So when I sat on the couch, I recognized that I couldn't talk. And I knew I couldn't talk, but it didn't, I still was trying to. I was trying to communicate. And I was really trying to, the reason I was looking at my phone, so I was trying to show, like, I was trying to get my phone to swipe up, and I couldn't get it to swipe up. And I was just trying to call my wife because I was going to tell her that I had a headache, and I was going to ask her to come over from the house and just give me some Advil, because my thought was, if I just had some Advil, then I could power through the rest of these meetings. I would just bite my lip and make it through the meeting, and then it would be fine. So I don't remember what happened next, but I remember not being awake. And I know that because the next thing that happened was someone was banging on my door, like the police. I mean, just banging on my door. And I heard someone come over my left shoulder saying, "Steve, are you okay? Are you okay?" Excuse me. And then I heard my wife say, "You should have called me. Why didn't you call me?" And I was trying to explain to her. I was showing her my phone. I was saying, I'm trying to call you. Like, I'm on a Zoom and I'm trying to get off. And first person who had come in was Tammy Casile, and she's a very good friend and colleague. And I said, I'm on a Zoom and I'm just trying to get off, and I have a headache. Can someone just give me some Advil? Next thing I heard was my eyes were still closed, and I could hear them, and I knew what was going on. And I heard someone say, "I'm going to call 911." I remember saying, "You don't need to do that." And then I opened my eyes, and when I opened my eyes, I saw, I have a window in my office. I saw my son, and he was looking at me, Walker, and his shoulders were slumped, and he was sad. I could just see it on his face. And it was at that moment that the ego went out the window. Some of you know that just over a year ago, I lost, and 2 sons lost, and a wife lost, an amazing person, and Yusuf Salam. To say that you wouldn't know who I am without him is an understatement. He was the breath in my lungs. And he had an incident in which he didn't get on the ambulance, and it didn't end well. And he's no longer with us. And so in a moment, like so many times before, Yusuf was right there, like just right there, saying, "Get in the ambulance, man." So I told people who were there, "Well, I'm walking to this ambulance. Y'all ain't gonna carry me. That's not how this is gonna go down." Now, I don't know how well I did as I walked, but before I got on the stretcher, I mouthed to Walker that I'm going to be fine. And I'm going to be fine. And don't worry. Just don't worry. I gave him a thumbs up. I sat down on the stretcher. It was minutes before we got to Yale New Haven Hospital. And when we got there, I mean, I was in the hall, you pull me in, and I still have my clothes on. And somebody said something about somebody had a stroke. And I thought, wow, I really hope that works out. Because, I mean, I've seen people who've had a stroke. And the really terrible part about it is that they were not born that way. So they actually had movement. They actually could speak. They actually could understand. And now they can't. And I just thought, wow, this is terrible that this is happening to someone. As I sat there, they would ask me to smile, stick my tongue out, raise my left hand, raise my right hand. We kept going through all these things. And so I said I had to go to the bathroom because I was getting somewhat annoyed by all the questions they were asking me. And I just got up, and when I went to get up, I had these pants on that had front pockets, and I went to put my hand in my front pocket, and I dropped my phone. And one of the nurses said that he has no strength on his left side. He's losing his left side, and his face is starting to slump. My face is not slumping. I mean, it's symmetrical. I mean, it may not be the best face, but it's even. And so more people started to come around, and they took me from the hallway to a room, and they would ask me to hold my hand up and then hold both of my hands up. And then they would watch as my left hand would drift. They asked me to have my leg up, and then they would watch my left leg drift. And they would ask me to close my eyes, and they would touch the side of my head and touch another side of my head. And they would ask me, which side am I touching? A couple times I just said both. I didn't know. But my plan was to get up out of there and go home because I had a meeting. And I told my sons not to worry, and told my wife not to worry, and I said I was going to be fine. So the next doctor who came in asked them to take me to a CAT scan. I went, came back, said you have a clot on your brain. And that's what's causing this. He said, we're going to give you some blood thinners and see if we can move it. So while I sat there, they waited a couple of minutes, and they took me back into the CAT scan, went out, came back, said the clot's still there. Still left hand, right hand, still asking me to say mama, still asking me to say basketball player, still asking me to say I saw you on the radio last night, just over and over and over again, just and asking me questions. What day is it? What year is it? What day is it? What year is it? What's your name? Where are you? What are you doing? Yale New Haven Hospital. Why are you here? Because somebody's taking life too seriously, and they got upset. They didn't appreciate my humor. And so the room that I was in the emergency room, was filling up with people, and they were talking about me, around me, but not to me. And there was this really nice nurse who had been with me the whole time. Her name is Amanda. And the doctor said something about a stroke. And it was the second time I had heard it, but this time I was in the room, and it wasn't in the hallway. Excuse me. And so I said to Amanda, who are they talking about? Who's having a stroke? She said, you. Now. I said, what? She said, yeah, you're having a stroke now. And I said, oh. So the doctor came back in. He said, we're going to have to operate. We're going to have to do brain surgery. There are a few phrases that move a person like brain surgery, at least move me like brain surgery. So I said, okay, it's Monday. So what are we talking, like Wednesday, Thursday? Like what is, I'm going to, go home, and I still have my pants on. I still have my shoes on. He said, no, now. Okay. I just checked for understanding. I said, just want to make sure I understood what you just said. You're going to take me now. And before I could ask the question, I was asking, still in mid since asking the question, you're going to take me now for brain surgery. There were 3 people just stripping my clothes off, just stripping my clothes off. That was around 1:15. I know that because I still have my watch on. I still have my watch on because I was fully expected that I wasn't going to be there for much longer. They're taking my rings, my watch, everything off. And I was saying to them as they're taking this stuff off me, hey, can you just put it right over there? So I'll be back. And doctor said, no, you're going to have brain surgery. So I said, oh, okay. I cannot tell you that I was afraid. I cannot tell you that I was afraid because I wasn't. I cannot tell you that I wasn't afraid because I had some sort of insight. I didn't. I felt covered. I felt covered. I felt like it was going to be all right. There's no reason for me to feel that way. I mean, at all. I'm not, I'm private about my faith, but it's not because I don't have faith, because I don't feel compelled to pray in the square for you. It's not with whom my relationship lies. And so I don't feel often compelled to share anything about my faith. Those people who I have the deepest relationships with understand what my faith is and isn't. And some have asked that I be more vocal about it, but those who I'm closest with understand it's just my thing, and it's not really for me to share with you or anybody, quite frankly. But this is different. Miss Sarah said that there's something more in this than my story. So I wasn't afraid. I was just disappointed. I was angry with myself that I was scaring my kids, and I'm scaring my wife, and scaring the people I love, and scaring my colleagues. I was scaring people who didn't deserve to be scared. It's like it didn't have to go this way. I was just trying to. I didn't know what. I just had a headache. I mean, my arm was numb, but it wasn't so numb that I couldn't use it. And my legs were numb, but they were not so. My left leg was numb, but it wasn't so numb that I couldn't use it. And the doctor said that I had extreme vascular flow, which meant that despite the fact I had this blood clot, that things were working beyond what they should have been working at. And so the nurses essentially jogged me through the hospital. I mean, literally just jogged me onto the elevator, got me upstairs. And when we got upstairs into the operating room, doctor introduced himself to me. I said, nice to meet you. I mean, Dr. Christopher Maddock. Dr. Christopher Maddock um, introduced himself to me, and I said, "Nice to meet you." But I don't know if "nice to meet you" is really what you say to the man who's about to go in your brain. It just seemed insufficient, but there wasn't a lot of other options. Everything was moving so fast. They were pushing me down on the table. They were strapping me down while they were talking to me. Literally a strap across my chest, a strap across my legs, a strap across my arms. And as Dr. Maddock got in there, he said that his car had been stolen earlier that morning. And I just want to put this in a perspective. The man who was about to operate on me didn't have to come to work on Monday. He didn't. He could have stayed home because his car was being stolen. And he came anyway. And that he came had nothing to do with me. It was bigger than me. And so the next person I saw was the anesthesiologist. And he introduced himself as an anesthesiologist. And I said, "My man, I need you to fill me up whatever you brought." And he said, "Well, Dr. Perry, that's not an option." He said, "You have to be awake during this procedure." So I said, no, brother, you got me all upside down. Like, you don't understand. I'm really bad with needles. Like, if my wife says heavy flow, that I make me throw up in my mouth. Like, you don't understand. Like, I'm really bad with this stuff. So he said, "Well, we need to be able to talk to you." I said, "Well, can't you talk to me now? Like, can you just ask me what you got to ask me now? And then if you got to ask me something afterwards, like we talk after, but like during brain surgery, I don't think is a good idea." He said, "No, you have to be awake during this." I said, "Bruh, you don't understand. Like you just said that I am having brain surgery, and there's no part of this that means that I have to be awake." I said, Dr. Maddock has to be awake. Dr. Perry could be asleep." He said, "Nope. You got to be awake. It's the only way." And so as he's saying this, they're taking tape and they're taping my head down and they're taping my chin down. And I'm completely taped down and strapped down. The only thing I can move are my eyes and my mouth, my fingers. And so he says, "You're going to be fine. I'm convinced of it." And I don't know why I believed him, but I did. And so for the next hour, I lie there awake, my eyes open. And even when I closed them, I just saw light. Even when they were closed, they were just this steady, pure, uninterrupted light. Not like day, not like a light, but light. I couldn't make it out, but it was just straight light. And it was warm and clear. And the only things I could think about, were my sons and people I love, my wife. And I made myself laugh because I was thinking, tomorrow I'm going to tell somebody I had brain surgery and they ain't going to believe me. I said, to myself, this is silly. Like this is silly that I'm here. And as I was, because I could feel the doctor's stint in my head, much the same way if I went down your shirt and did like that, you could feel it inside your shirt. I could feel it. I could feel him moving around in my head. And at no point, at no point was I afraid. And it's not because I'm fearless. I was more concerned about the needle. And if you knew me, my cousin Pam knows me, they know that was the issue for me. It was that I had to get a needle and that they were going to talk about surgery. That's my kryptonite. But once that was done, like it was in, needles were in, I'm strapped down. I can't move even if I want to. I mean, strapped down. And just at that moment, Dr. Maddock hit something and I just said, ow, 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 ow. And he said, does that hurt? I said, it does. It does, sir. It hurts a lot. And he said, okay. And while he would, because it had hurt a couple times, but I kept biting the inside of my lip, the left side of my lip, because it was the left side of my body that I couldn't really feel. And so I was trying to displace the pain. I was biting my lip and biting my lip and biting my lip just because I was trying to displace the pain. It just felt like biting into something that is so cold. This is the worst brain freeze I'd ever had. Just biting into my lip and to the point where it just kept shooting. And I just thought, oh my God, this is the worst headache. They would ask me on a scale from 1 to 10, what does this feel like? And I would say 14. It just hurt so much. But during that time, I was calm. And again, it's not because I am some sort of superhero. I'm not the guy who's like, hey, I want to see my surgery. No, I would love to give blood, but they got to stick a needle in me to get it. And so that just doesn't happen with me. And so he hit a spot again. Dr. Maddock hit a spot again. And I said, ow, 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 ow. And he said, almost there, almost done. I said, that's the second best thing you could have said. And then he, the next thing he said was, we got the entire clot. And I said, that's pretty good news, but not what I was listening for just yet. There's no arrogance in this. I don't know why I knew I was coming off that table, but it just didn't occur to me that it wasn't going to go my way. And so a couple minutes later, said it was going to take an hour. It took an hour. He said, all set. And so at that point, I'm still taped in, still strapped down. And he said, I said, thank you. He said, you're welcome. I asked for my phone, and someone gave it to me. I called my wife. I said, I'm good. So I'm going to need y'all to stop worrying. And then I texted a couple of my colleagues. I said, I just want to let you know I'm texting you from the operating table. So stop tripping. I'm fine. I had no reason to have that level of faith because my cousin Keith, who I was born on the same day as, who was I think 57 years old, he's about 5 years older than I am, died last year from the same thing. So my cousin Keith passed away from blood clots in his brain. So I had every reason to doubt that this would go my way. I didn't. So when I got upstairs to ICU, the first set of doctors came in. Now, Yale University's medical center, I would do commercials for these folks because they were just amazing. But when the first set of doctors came in, the doctor asked me, a young doctor, he asked me, he said, how do you feel? I said, what I say all the time, I'm having the time of my life. He said, I bet you are. He said, no, but really, how do you feel? I said, I'm fine. He said, if you would unstrap me, I'll get up off this gurney. He said, we can't do that. I said, I don't know how to prove to you that I'm fine. So he asked me to lift my hand. I did. It did not drift. He asked me to lift my other hand. I did. It did not drift. He asked me to repeat after him. I did. He asked me what day it was. I told him. He touched my leg with my eyes closed. I told him what leg he was touching. He asked me to lift it up. He asked me to put it down. And he looked at me like he had seen a ghost. He said, more in a question way, he said, so you're fine? I said, unless you're going to tell me something different, yeah, I'm good. He said, we do these things that we did with you, but they don't typically go this way. He said, we do it for this purpose, but it just doesn't typically end this way. I wasn't 20 minutes out of surgery. I didn't know what the hell he's talking about. I just wanted somebody to give me my watch back, give me my pants back, give me my sneakers back so I go home. So that as night went on, I recognized that wasn't happening. So the next set of doctors come in, and it's almost like a circus of sorts where they were coming in to see me. It wasn't like they were coming in to do their job. And please don't take this as anything against them because they were amazing and professional. The next set of doctors came in, and the doctors went through the whole, left hand, right hand, what am I touching? Stick your tongue out, smile. Ask me what day, all the same things over and over and over again. And so this doctor said, you're really lucky. Again, it's not my business to burden people with my faith. I'm not going to tell them that I don't think I'm lucky because I don't think that that's what it was. But it really wasn't. When that kind of conversation, I wasn't there to test him. He was there to help me. So I said to him, Doc, forgive me. But everyone keeps coming in here and telling me that I'm lucky. And I don't know what you mean. So can I just ask you to be a little bit more specific about that? He said, based upon the position and size of the clot that you had, you should not be able to speak. He said, you should have lost your ability to speak. He said, and based upon the size and position of the clot, you should be paralyzed on the left side of your body. He said, and you should also not be able to understand what I'm saying to you. He said, there's a man down the hall who had the same situation that you had, and he cannot speak. He cannot walk. He cannot understand what I'm saying. Told you I lost my cousin Keith last year to this. I heard him. it wasn't time for me in that space to share with him or anybody my story or my faith. It wasn't what we were doing there. They spent the next 3 days trying to figure out what happened. I have had more ultrasounds, more CAT scans, more MRIs than anybody you know in a 3-day period. They don't know what happened. Everyone says you're stressed out, you work too hard, and that's just not true. In fact, the doctor said that's not what it is. Said that all the indicators of stress, blood pressure, heart issues, any of those things, it's not, you don't have them. So not that. You have cancer in any part of your body that they could find. Your blood flow is strong. It got to the point where they ran out of tests and they started to ask me if I would participate in trials. Just because they don't know why someone of my health, my age, had that. My family knows this story because they're my family. Because they were praying for me and I felt it. My very, very close friends and who I consider family, and my colleagues, most of whom I consider family, they know this because they were praying for me too. But I didn't want to share this story beyond that because this is a strange world. And I mean, some clown was up here while we're still having this conversation trying to sell Bitcoin. I didn't want to talk about it because it just for this. I didn't want to talk about it. The doctor who saw me in the emergency room came up the next day. He wasn't there to visit me in terms of I'm not his patient anymore. He works in ER. He just wanted to see what happened. People kept coming into my room just to look and see what happened. Nurses would come in and they would say, "We heard about you." The doctor, Dr. Christopher Maddock, who worked on me, is one of the leading surgeons in the world on this particular surgery, who happened to be in the emergency room on the day that I was brought in at the time that I was brought in. A few days before, I was in Puerto Rico. I ran 5 miles in 86-degree heat at 5 p.m. A few days before, I did 2.5 miles 3 hours before the surgery. This could have happened anywhere else. My house is it's a couple hundred yards from the fire department and the first responders who got there. My colleague, Tammy Casil, who took the call from James Stovall, whose wife is an emergency room physician who I was on the call with, lives less than a mile from me and happened to be home when I was home. She was supposed to be somewhere else. So she was supposed to be somewhere else. The woman who came, knocked on the door, got my wife, called 911, wasn't supposed to be where she was. The doctor, there was no reason for him to be there. His car was stolen. Some clowns stole this man's car while he was warming it up to come to work to save people's lives. Yet he came to work anyway. The reason that they decided to do the surgery was because he was there, because of his expertise. You have 3 hours. 3 hours to get from the point of the stroke beginning to surgery, to have any hope of correction. One of my colleagues' father died for this reason. The doctor who saw me in the emergency room said, everything that could have gone right in this wrong situation did. He said, we don't get this opportunity. And as I told you at the time, and again, y'all don't, if you don't know me, you're not going to ever know me. And that's fine. I don't even care that you do. I really don't. But I just need you to understand what I'm saying is happening. When I looked up and saw my son who was sad, the person who came to my mind was Yusuf Salam. The first time I stood up to walk, Brother Seth used to wear this musk that only black people wear. And he used to wear it. It's distinctly his. Wasn't my favorite scent, but it was his. And he wore it every single day, or at least seemed like it. The physical therapist walked me around the hospital. So I told them that the reason I was in there was because of Yusuf, because he was looking out for me. At that point, I smelled the musk. Now, there were no black people on the floor, just none but white folks. Maybe there was a white person who somehow got that African musk and was wearing it. Whatever. So I left it at that. I walked around to the same spot because if I smelled it the first time, I should have smelled it the second time. I didn't. I walked around a third time to the same exact spot. I did not smell it again. And then I went into the ICU room that I was in by myself, closed the door. They closed the door, closed the curtain, and I smelled it again as if he had walked by me. I don't know what your faith is, and that's on you, because mine is personal to me as yours is to you. But Miss Sarah wanted me to share this because she said that she feels that there are some people who may not have faith. This is a woman who is right now just getting out of the ICU in a recovery center, who fights every single day for our community. She said people don't understand what we go through to do what it is. Says she doesn't think that people truly understand what we go through. Every single day fighting to make sure. And think about what we're fighting. We're just fighting to make sure that Black and Latin kids get access to an education. That's really all I'm fighting for. I mean, there ain't really nothing other than that. I wish it was more complicated. I wish it was deeper than that. I'm not some professor who's trying to come up with something to become a tenured professor to teach on some white college campus to be able to. That's not it. Y'all go on with that. I just want to work in the hood. I want to help my community out. And Miss Sarah said, people don't understand what we go through. I texted Miss Sarah from ICU. I didn't tell her where I was because I knew she was there and I didn't want to burden her with my problems. So I texted her. She didn't text me back, which was fine. I knew she had brain surgery on Tuesday. And so when we spoke finally this weekend, she told me what had happened. She talked me through it, told me what it was, said she has staples. They went through my artery and my groin. And I said to her, Miss Sarah, I had brain surgery too on Monday. She said, Dr. Perry, they don't understand what we go through. These people don't understand what we go through to fight for our community. I talked to one of my friends who's a doctor, Dr. Mac Nelson. He's a surgeon. And I told him that my wife is found on the internet that said I had a 10% chance of making it. He said, you didn't have a 10% chance. He said, 99% of the time, people don't have full recovery. Miss Sarah will tell you she's right now trying to get control over the left side of her body. And I'm confident that if it can be done, then she will do it. And her faith is as big and as powerful as anyone's. And so Matt asked me, he said, when you think about all that just happened, do you think you should maybe consider doing something different? I said, I do not. I said, from my wife's friends who got together when they found out I was in the hospital and bought our family $500 worth of DoorDash, to my colleagues who I know didn't sleep for a week and still some of them are struggling to sleep, to the kids who I call them kids. Some of them are, they're very, very grown men and women with children and spouses. This is an awesome place that I find myself in. And in that place, I had what I refer to as a mock funeral. I saw who was there. I was happy with it. I saw what they had to say. I was happy with it. They didn't know that I was going to make it out. So whatever they said, they could have said. But they rallied around my family and my friends and our schools. They did everything that I would have ever hoped. Every night that I stayed out later and didn't read to one of my sons, every time I woke my sons up early to go to the gym and clean it up, everything, every investment felt worth it in that time. What I did take away, though, is this. When I'm not careful, I spend a lot more time in the negative than I want to. I spend more time thinking about those trolls on the internet. I spend more time thinking about people who I've worked with who've tried to create havoc in our organization, whether they be parents or colleagues, former colleagues. I've spent so much time, too much time, in the negative. And what I learned while I was there, having brain surgery while being awake, was that what carried me through was the light. And that pure light. I cannot describe it. It was the most comforting, placid, uninterrupted light. And during that time when I was facing my greatest fears of needles and blood, but most importantly, scaring my kids and family, none of those people, places, or things that spend their life trying to disrupt my life came anywhere near me. I was covered. I was completely enshrouded. There was nothing. And what I have to offer then, my testimony, is that when times are hardest, the place that you got to go to is the light. The light is that place where it's the most positive, where you focus on the people in your life who matter most. Man, kids, and I call them kids because they're always going to be suspended in time for me, but young women and men and women from every corner of this country, different parts of the world, who, despite being told not to text me or call me, did just that every day. And they were calling me with very clear directions as to what I am supposed to do and not supposed to do. Now, some of them are doctors, but they're not that kind of doctor, but they're all alums of our schools. And they called and made it clear that what I was going to do. And if I didn't do what they were asking me to do, what they were going to do to make sure I did it. And they were clear, and I appreciated it. And it meant a lot. But it's the light. It's the positive, compelling, rich beauty of the good deeds that we do that make life worth living. And we're all going to face something. You will face something if you're not doing it right now. And I implore you, whatever your faith, whatever you call your God, if you have one, whatever you call that center light for you, whatever her, his, their name is for you, I need you to go to the light. I need you to stay positive. I need you to get right. I need you to get focused. There's no one who would have been able to convince me that I would have had a stroke last week, that I had brain surgery last week. No one. And there's no one who can tell the doctors who worked on me why it is that I'm out of here. Why it is that there are people who came in after me in the ICU who are still there and I'm not. Why it is that I'm here. But I know this, that Miss Sarah said it best, that since I'm not in there, God sent me out to make this plea to you. Go to the light. Find those people in your life who are purely positive. Wrap your arms and legs around them. Let them know that you love them. Continue to do the best that you can do. Do not find yourself caught up in the foolishness of just pure hate. And when you live your life doing right, the right things will happen. There are people who are rich who don't do good things, but wealth is not happiness. There are people who are poor and they do good things, but again, wealth is not happiness. But I submit to you that the light is happiness. Find it. Find the light in your life. Find those beautiful people in your life, those reasons to smile that you have, because we all have them. Make sure you take the time to embrace them. And when you have a testimony such as this and Miss Sarah calls you and tells you to share it, share it. Folks, I want to thank you so much for joining me tonight on No Dumb Questions. It's a great opportunity that I have had to share with you His glory. I'll leave the preaching to the preachers. My gospel is the gospel of self-determination through education. But I do want to thank all of you for your prayers, because I promise you, I felt every single one, and not one moment passed where I doubted that things were going to go this way. I have nothing to predict for tomorrow, but for today, I want to thank you for spending your time with me. Y'all take good care. And remember, the smartest person in the room is not the one with the most answers, but the one with the best questions.